The halls of Galactic Academy Station, Theta 7 gleamed with soft blue light as students from dozens of worlds moved between classes. Jiho walked alongside his lab partner Talus, whose insectoid body clicked softly with each step. The human adjusted his datapad and smiled at the strange mix of beings around him. Some floated, some crawled, and some moved in ways he still could not quite understand even after 6 months at the academy. "You seem nervous about today's lab," Talus observed, his compound eyes reflecting the corridor lights. Jiho shrugged. "Professor Quinn said we'd be working with actual toxic samples. Back on Earth, that means serious safety protocols. Everything is toxic to someone." Talus replied with what Jiho had learned was his species' equivalent of a laugh. "My homeworld's water would dissolve your skin in seconds." They entered the xenobiology lab where other students were already setting up their stations. Jiho noticed Vorak across the room, the large reptilian student who always seemed to scowl whenever humans were mentioned. Vorak had made it clear he thought humans were too soft for real scientific work. Just last week, he had commented that humans looked like they would break if someone breathed on them too hard. Professor Quinn entered, their amphibian skin shifting colors as they moved. "Today we study toxins from 12 different worlds. Each station has samples in secure containers. You will analyze their molecular structure and determine which species they affect. Remember, these substances are diluted, but still dangerous. Do not open containers without proper field activation." Jiho and Talus began their work, scanning the samples through the reinforced glass. The first 3 were fascinating. One toxin that was deadly to Talus's species did absolutely nothing to human tissue samples. Another that would kill most mammals was harmless to the insectoid species. The variety of life in the galaxy never stopped amazing Jiho. "I'm going to get my lunch from my bag," Jiho said during the break. "Want anything from the station?" "No, I ate before class," Talus replied, still focused on his scanner readings. Jiho walked to the back of the lab where students had left their personal belongings. He grabbed his water container, the one Nara had given him that morning. She had filled it with cold water, knowing the lab could get warm. He took a long drink, grateful for the refreshing taste. Then he returned to his station and continued working. About 10 minutes later, Jiho felt strange. His chest tightened. The room seemed too bright. Then, too dark. He blinked, trying to clear his vision. "Jiho." Talus turned toward him. "Your skin color is changing." "Jiho. Jiho." Jiho looked at his hands. They had turned an odd grayish color, and his fingers were shaking. "I don't feel right." "Why?" "Professor," Talus called out, his voice sharp with alarm. The pain hit suddenly. Jiho's lungs felt like they were filled with glass. His heart hammered irregularly in his chest. The room spun, and he grabbed the table to stay upright. Other students were staring now, some backing away, unsure what was happening. Professor Quinn rushed over with a medical scanner. The device beeped frantically as it passed over Jiho's body. The professor's skin went pale white, a sign of extreme shock in their species. "Medical emergency," Professor Quinn shouted. "His respiratory system is failing. Circulatory system is compromised. Nervous system showing critical damage. I'm reading failures in 6 major organ systems." Jiho tried to speak, but could only manage a weak gasp. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to the floor. Through blurring vision, he saw Talus's face above him, mandibles clicking in distress. "Stay with me, Jiho," Talus said. "Help is coming." The last thing Jiho saw before darkness took him was Vorak standing frozen near the back of the lab, his expression no longer scornful, but terrified. The medical bay doors burst open as emergency staff rushed Jiho inside on a floating stretcher. Machines surrounded him immediately, tubes and sensors attaching to his failing body. The medical AI's voice was calm, but urgent as it listed his conditions. Multiple organ failure detected. Respiratory function at 18%. Cardiac rhythm irregular. Neural activity declining. Toxin identified. Thessian nightshade, concentration point 0.032. Probability of survival, 2.3%. The head doctor, a being of pure energy contained in a special suit, moved quickly around the bed. How did this happen? That toxin is secured in the xenobiology lab. Back in the lab, Professor Quinn was investigating. Talus stood near Jiho's water container, his scanner active. Professor, this water, it has traces of the toxin. That's impossible. The containers were sealed. Talus replayed the lab's security footage on his datapad. The recording showed Vorak approaching Jiho's bag during the early part of class when everyone was focused on their work. Vorak looked around, then quickly opened Jiho's water container and poured something inside from a small vial. He poisoned Jiho, Talus said, his voice hard. Professor Quinn immediately contacted security. Within minutes, station guards arrived and detained Vorak, who initially denied everything until shown the footage. His defiance crumbled. I just wanted to make him sick, Vorak said, his voice shaking. Humans always act so tough. I wanted to prove they're weak. I didn't think it would actually hurt him badly. I diluted it. It was supposed to just give him a stomach ache. You used Thessian nightshade, the security officer said coldly. That substance is lethal to most carbon-based life. Diluted or not, you may have killed him. In the medical bay, Jiho's body continued shutting down. His temperature had dropped dangerously low. His breathing came in shallow, irregular gasps, despite the machines helping his lungs. The medical staff had never treated a human before. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and their biology was poorly documented in most medical databases. We're losing him, one nurse said, checking the monitors. Brain activity is decreasing. The energy-based doctor worked desperately, consulting Earth's medical database through the interstellar network. The information was limited, translated awkwardly through multiple languages, and often contradictory. Human medicine was still primitive by galactic standards, or so the database suggested. Talus arrived at the medical bay and stood outside the treatment room, watching through the window. Other students had gathered too. Word spreading fast through the station's network. A human was dying from poison that should have been impossible to access. Nara, Jiho's roommate, pushed through the crowd. Talus didn't know what to say. The monitors showed Jiho's vital signs dropping steadily. Every few seconds, an alarm would sound as another system reached critical levels. I don't know, Talus admitted quietly. Inside the treatment room, the medical AI updated its analysis. Survival probability now at 0.8%. Recommend notifying next of kin. Expected time of death, 42 minutes. The doctor refused to give up, but even their advanced technology seemed helpless against the poison ravaging Jiho's body. The human lay still on the bed, his chest barely moving, his skin an unnatural gray color. Death was coming, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. The station's lights seemed dimmer somehow as students watched and waited for the inevitable news. Dr. Zelnis studied the monitors surrounding Jiho's bed with growing confusion. The energy being's containment suit hummed softly as they moved closer to examine the readings. According to every medical model in the galactic database, the human should have been dead 20 minutes ago. Yet somehow, impossibly, his vital signs had stopped declining. This doesn't make sense, Dr. Zelnis said to the medical team. His organ systems are still failing, but the rate has slowed significantly. A nurse checked the toxin levels in Jiho's blood. Doctor, the Thessian nightshade concentration is decreasing. His liver appears to be processing it despite being severely damaged. That's biochemically impossible. The toxin destroys liver tissue. It can't metabolize what's killing it. But the readings didn't lie. Jiho's liver, which had been shown as 70% non-functional an hour ago, was somehow working again. Not well, but working. The organ was breaking down the poison molecule by molecule, even as the poison continued damaging it. Minho arrived at the medical bay, still wearing his intern uniform. He was one of only 2 other humans on the entire station, studying xenomedicine in the hope of becoming a bridge between Earth doctors and galactic healthcare. He had been in class when the emergency alert reached his datapad. "Let me help," Minho said, moving to Jiho's bedside. "I know human physiology better than anyone here." Dr. Zelnis stepped aside. "Please. We're operating blind. Your species isn't in our primary medical databases." Minho pulled up information on his personal datapad, medical files he had brought from Earth. "Okay. Humans have several backup systems that might not show up on your scanners. Our bodies are built for redundancy. If one system fails, others compensate." "Explain," Dr. Zelnis said, recording everything. "Our bone marrow produces blood cells constantly. If we lose blood, or cells are damaged, production increases dramatically. Our kidneys can function with just 30% capacity. Our lungs can operate independently. If one fails, the other works harder. We have 2 of most organs. For exactly this reason, the medical team watched as Jiho's body demonstrated these principles in real time. His bone marrow had gone into overdrive, flooding his bloodstream with fresh white blood cells that attacked the toxin like enemy invaders. His single functioning kidney was working triple time to filter his blood. His heart, damaged but stubborn, continued beating with irregular but persistent rhythm. "His temperature is rising," a nurse observed. "Up to 39 degrees Celsius." Minho nodded. "That's a fever. His body is doing that on purpose. Heat helps fight infections and speeds up cellular processes. It's uncomfortable, but helpful." "On purpose?" Dr. Zelnis sounded shocked. "His body is damaging itself intentionally?" "Not damage. Strategy. Human bodies fight back. We don't just defend against threats, we attack them." Over the next several hours, the medical team witnessed something they had never seen in their careers. Jiho's body waged war against the poison with brutal efficiency. Every system that hadn't completely failed was working overtime. Blood vessels constricted to slow toxin spread. His immune system produced antibodies at incredible speed. His damaged stomach lining began regenerating before the toxin was even fully cleared. Subin arrived around midnight, bringing food for Minho and updates from the investigation. She taught linguistics at the academy and had become friends with both human students. Her face was drawn with worry as she looked at Jiho through the window. "How is he?" she asked quietly. "Alive," Minho replied, "which is more than anyone expected. I heard what Forak did. The whole station is talking about it. Some species are saying humans might be more dangerous than we thought if we can survive things like this." "Sev. My third." Minho laughed bitterly. "We're not dangerous. We're just hard to kill. There's a difference." Inside the treatment room, Dr. Zelnis was compiling notes that would change galactic medicine forever. The doctor documented how Jiho's liver had regenerated 34% of its damaged tissue in just 8 hours, how his neural pathways had literally rerouted around damaged sections, creating new connections to keep his brain functioning, how his cardiovascular system was operating at 87% capacity despite damage that should have been completely fatal. "This is remarkable," Dr. Zelnis said to Minho. "Most species have efficient systems, but humans have aggressive systems. Your bodies don't just maintain life, they fight for it." "We come from a difficult world," Minho said simply. "You adapt or you die." Around 3 in the morning, something changed. The monitors that had been beeping steadily suddenly showed a spike in brain activity. Jiho's eyes moved beneath his closed lids. His fingers twitched. "He's regaining consciousness," a nurse said, surprised. Dr. Zelnis moved closer. "Already?" "Most patients would need days to recover from this trauma." Jiho's eyes opened slowly. The gray color had faded from his skin, replaced by a more normal pale tone. He looked at the ceiling, then at the machines around him, clearly confused. "What happened?" His voice was rough and weak. You were poisoned, Dr. Zelnis explained gently. You've been unconscious for 8 hours. Your body experienced multiple organ failures. Jiho processed this information slowly. I feel terrible. You should be dead, the doctor said bluntly. The toxin concentration in your water should have killed you within minutes. Your survival is statistically impossible. Oh. Jiho tried to sit up, but immediately felt dizzy. Minho moved to his side, helping him lie back down. Don't move yet. Your body needs rest. Did I miss my afternoon classes? Jiho asked. The medical team stared at him. The human had just survived something that would have killed almost any known species. And he was worried about missing class. Minho smiled despite himself. Yeah, you missed them. I think your professors will understand. News of Jiho's awakening spread through the station network within minutes. Students who had gone to bed thinking their classmate would die woke to messages saying he was conscious and talking. Talus, who had refused to leave the medical bay waiting area, rushed to the window when he heard, Jiho is awake, Talus told the others gathered there. He's actually awake. Nara pressed her hands against the window, relief flooding through her. Thank God. By morning, the medical bay was surrounded by curious students and faculty. Everyone wanted to know how the human had survived. Dr. Zelnis found themselves giving impromptu lectures on human resilience to groups of shocked academics. Their bodies are designed to withstand trauma, the doctor explained. They evolved on a world where survival meant enduring constant threats. Predators, disease, environmental hazards. Humans who couldn't recover from injury didn't pass on their genetics. Over millions of years, they became incredibly difficult to kill. Inside the treatment room, Jiho was arguing with the medical staff. I appreciate everything you've done, but I feel okay enough to leave, he said. Absolutely not, Dr. Zelnis replied firmly. You need at least 2 weeks of recovery. Your organs are still healing. But I have advanced quantum mechanics tomorrow morning. We're covering dimensional theory. I can't miss that. You nearly died. But I didn't, Jiho pointed out. Look, I feel bad. Like really bad. But I can function. I just need rest and food. Dr. Zelnis realized they were experiencing a fundamental difference in perspective. To the doctor, Jiho was a miracle of survival, who needed extensive care. To Jiho, he was sick, but mobile, no different than recovering from a bad illness back on Earth. Humans, Dr. Zelnis muttered, a phrase that would become common among the medical staff. It meant something impossible was happening, and a human was probably responsible. As dawn broke over the station, Jiho sat in his bed, sipping water carefully while Minho explained what had happened with Vorak. The story made Jiho angry, but also sad. He hadn't realized his presence at the academy bothered anyone that much. He's going to be expelled, Minho said. Maybe face criminal charges. Jiho nodded slowly, his body aching with every small movement. He was alive. Somehow. His body had fought off something that should have killed him easily. Now he just had to convince everyone to let him go back to his normal life. But normal, he was beginning to realize, might not be possible anymore. Morning light filtered through the medical bay windows as Dr. Zelnis reviewed Jiho's latest scan results. The doctor had barely slept, fascinated and disturbed by what they were seeing. Jiho's recovery was accelerating beyond anything in medical literature. Tissue that should have taken weeks to heal had regenerated overnight. Systems that should have needed months of rehabilitation were already functioning at acceptable levels. This is impossible, Dr. Zelnis said for perhaps the 100th time. Jiho sat on the edge of his bed, dressed in his own clothes that Nara had brought earlier. He looked tired and pale, with dark circles under his eyes, but he was upright and alert. To anyone who had seen him dying 18 hours ago, his current state seemed like witnessing resurrection. I really need to go to class, Jiho said. Professor Quinn's course only meets twice a week, and I'm already behind. You experienced complete respiratory failure, Dr. Zelnis said, pulling up the scans to show him. Your lungs stopped working. Your heart stopped maintaining proper rhythm. Your nervous system was shutting down. You should be in intensive care for weeks. I know it's bad. I feel pretty rough. But I can walk, I can think, and I can sit in a lecture hall. That's all I need to do. Minho entered the room carrying a covered cup. Brought you something from the station cafe. Figured you'd want actual Earth food. Jiho's face lit up when he lifted the cover and smelled coffee. Real coffee. Imported at enormous expense from Earth. You're a lifesaver. Real coffee. Real coffee. That's ironic coming from you, Minho replied with a slight smile. Dr. Zelnis watched Jiho take a long drink of the hot liquid. The human's body temperature was still slightly elevated, his healing processes still active, yet he was consuming a stimulant beverage. It made no medical sense. But then again, nothing about humans seemed to follow logical medical protocols. I cannot approve your discharge, Doctor, Zelnis said. However, I acknowledge that I cannot physically restrain you. If you choose to leave against medical advice, I require you to sign liability waivers and wear a medical monitor at all times. Done. Jiho agreed. Immediately. 20 minutes later, Jiho walked through the academy corridors with Minho beside him. Students stopped and stared. Word of the poisoning had spread through every corner of the station. Some species communicated through network connections, others through pheromones. But gossip apparently transcended biology. Everyone knew the human had nearly died. You're famous now, Minho said quietly. Hope you're ready for that. I just want things to go back to normal. Normal ended when you survived Thessian Nightshade. They reached the Advanced Quantum Mechanics lecture hall at 8:55 in the morning. Jiho took a deep breath, feeling his still healing lungs protest slightly, then walked through the door. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Professor Quinn, who had been setting up the holographic display, dropped their data pad. It clattered loudly in the sudden silence. Every student in the room turned to stare. Some species' eyes widened, others' stalks bent, and a few simply froze in biological shock. Jiho gave a small wave and made his way to his usual seat near the front. Sorry I'm late. Anyone know where I can get coffee? The medical bay only had that nutritional paste stuff. The silence stretched for another few seconds. Then the room erupted in noise. Students talking over each other in dozens of languages. Translators struggling to keep up with the chaos. Professor Quinn moved closer to Jiho, their skin shifting through several colors rapidly. You should be in the medical bay, the professor said. I visited you last night. You were unconscious. The doctors said 6 of your major organ systems had failed. Yeah, they told me about that, Jiho replied, sitting down carefully. His body ached, and he felt exhausted, despite sleeping most of the previous day. I'm okay now. Mostly. Still feel pretty bad, honestly. Definitely the worst Tuesday I've had this semester. Talus rushed over from his seat, mandibles clicking rapidly. You should be dead. The medical scanner showed critical failures. I watched you collapse. How are you sitting here drinking coffee? To be fair, this is my second coffee, Jiho said, holding up the cup Minho had brought. The first one was definitely necessary. A student from a species Jiho didn't recognize spoke up, their translator rendering their speech in flat mechanical tones. My biology professor said Thessian Nightshade is fatal to all carbon-based life forms. They use it as an example of universal toxins in xenobiology courses. Well, apparently not all carbon-based life forms, Jiho said with a weak smile. Though I really don't recommend trying it. 0 stars. Would not do again. Professor Quinn realized the class was not going to proceed normally. They made a quick decision and dismissed the lecture, instead moving everyone to a larger seminar room. Within minutes, the room filled with students from other classes, faculty members, and even some staff. Everyone wanted to see the human who had survived the unsurvivable. Subin arrived and pushed through the crowd to reach Jiho. You idiot. You beautiful idiot. Do you have any idea how worried we were? Sorry, Jiho said genuinely. Didn't mean to worry anyone. The whole station thought you were dead, she said, sitting beside him. The medical reports that leaked said 0 chance of survival. Guess I'm stubborn. A senior biology professor, a floating jellyfish-like being, drifted closer. May I ask what your recovery felt like? For medical documentation purposes. Jiho thought about it. Honestly, it felt like really bad food poisoning. Everything hurt. I was exhausted, confused. But once I woke up, I just felt sick. Not dying. Just sick. The professor made notes on a datapad. Humans regularly experience what you call food poisoning? Oh yeah. Happens all the time back on Earth. Bad food, contaminated water, eating something that disagrees with your stomach. You feel terrible for a day or two. Then you get better. And you survived this regularly? Most humans do, yeah. It's usually not dangerous unless it's really severe. The gathered aliens exchanged looks that Jiho had learned to recognize. It was the expression species made when they realized humans were far stranger than they had assumed. Earth, it seemed, was more dangerous than most had believed. Nara arrived, having run from her chemistry class when she heard Jiho was out of the medical bay. She hugged him tightly, not caring who was watching. Don't ever scare me like that again. I'll do my best, Jiho promised. Dr. Zelnis arrived at the seminar room, having tracked Jiho's medical monitor. The doctor took one look at the crowd and sighed. I should have known you would cause a disruption. I just wanted to go to class, Jiho protested. You're broadcasting vital signs that would send any other species into emergency care, yet you're sitting here discussing your experience like it's a minor inconvenience. Dr. Zelnis addressed the crowd. This human's liver has regenerated over 40% of its damaged tissue in less than 24 hours. His neural pathways have restructured to bypass damaged sections. His cardiovascular system is operating at near normal capacity despite severe trauma. By every medical standard we know, he should be dead or in a coma. Instead, he's complaining about coffee quality. The paste really was bad, Jiho said quietly to Nara, who stifled a laugh despite herself. Professor Quinn spoke up. Perhaps this is an opportunity for education. With Jiho's permission, we could discuss human resilience and survival adaptations. It's relevant to xenobiology. Jiho shrugged. Sure, if it helps people understand humans better. For the next hour, Jiho found himself at the center of an impromptu lecture. Dr. Zelnis explained the medical findings. Minho provided context about human evolution and Earth's environment. Jiho answered questions, some of which were surprisingly personal. Do humans regularly survive trauma like this? One student asked. Not exactly like this, Jiho admitted. But humans survive a lot of things. Diseases, injuries, accidents. Our bodies are good at healing. We're also really stubborn about not dying. Your planet must be incredibly dangerous, another student observed. We call it home, Jiho replied. But yeah, I guess compared to some places, Earth is pretty rough. Lots of things that can hurt you. Extreme weather, dangerous animals, diseases. Humans learned to be tough because we had to be. By the time the gathering dispersed, everyone in attendance had a new perspective on humanity. They weren't the soft, weak species some had assumed. They were survivors from a world that had forced them to be resilient or die out. As Jiho finally made his way back to his dormitory with Nara and Minho, he felt the weight of exhaustion settling over him. His body had done amazing things to keep him alive, but it had cost him energy he didn't have to spare. I think I need to sleep for about 3 days, he admitted. Good, Nara said, because you're not leaving our dorm until you're actually recovered. I'm locking the door. Jiho smiled. He was alive. He had friends who cared about him. And somehow, against all odds and medical probability, He had survived something that should have killed him easily. Now he just had to figure out how to live with being the human who wouldn't die. As news of his return to class spread through the galactic networks, reaching worlds across dozens of systems, one thing became clear. Humans were no longer just another species at the Academy. They were something special, something unique. They were survivors. 3 days after the incident, Dr. Hyun arrived at Galactic Academy Station Theta 7, aboard a fast diplomatic transport from Earth. She was a xenobiologist who had spent her career studying how humans compared to alien species, and the news of Jiho's survival had reached her within hours. Now she walked through the station corridors with Ambassador Daeun, who had come to manage what was rapidly becoming a diplomatic situation. "How bad is it?" Dr. Hyun asked. Ambassador Daeun pulled up reports on her datapad. 17 different species have requested permission to study Jiho. The Galactic Medical Institute wants to perform invasive tests. Some governments are questioning whether humans should be allowed in general population areas if we're this resilient. There are concerns we might be too dangerous. Gen. 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 Because we're hard to kill? Because if we're hard to kill, some species wonder what else we might be capable of. They found Jiho in his dormitory, looking better than he had 3 days ago but still clearly recovering. Nara had indeed kept him locked in their shared room, making sure he rested. Minho visited daily to check his vital signs. Subin brought him course materials so he wouldn't fall behind. Talus had sent several messages of concern. "Doctor." Hyun introduced herself and got straight to business. "I'm here to make sure nobody experiments on you, and to help the galactic community understand what happened. Are you comfortable talking about it?" Jong kunted. "No matter self." "Well, Hyun." Jong kunted it. "Well, Hyun self." "Sure," Jiho said. "Everyone else has been asking questions. Might as well give official answers." Over the next day, Dr. Hyun organized a formal presentation to the Academy's faculty and senior students. The main auditorium was packed with beings from dozens of worlds, all curious about human biology. Jiho sat in the front row between Nara and Minho, feeling oddly like a specimen on display. Dr. Hyun began with a holographic image of Earth rotating slowly. "This is where humans evolved. What do you notice about it?" One. A faculty member spoke up. "High oxygen content in the atmosphere. That's a fire risk." "Correct. Earth has 21% oxygen. It makes fire common and breathing energetic." "What else?" Another voice. "Extreme axial tilt. That would cause severe seasonal variations." "Yes. Humans experience temperature ranges from -40 to +50 Celsius, depending on location and season. We adapted to handle both extremes." Continue. The observations came quickly now. Large moon, causing strong tides. Tectonically active crust, causing earthquakes and volcanoes. Thin ozone layer, allowing dangerous radiation. Multiple climate zones requiring different survival strategies. Dr. Hyun let them process the information, then brought up a classification chart. In galactic terms, Earth rates as a Class 12 hazard planet. Most species evolve on Class 4 to Class 7 worlds. Anything above Class 9 is considered too dangerous for complex life to develop intelligence. The auditorium went quiet. "Humans evolved to survive on a death world," Dr. Hyun continued. "Not through armor or natural weapons, but through adaptability and resilience. Let me explain our physical systems." She pulled up a diagram of human anatomy. Humans have redundant organs. 2 lungs that can function independently. 2 kidneys, when we only need 30% of one. A liver that can regenerate from as little as 25% remaining tissue. Eyes that can operate in both bright sunlight and near darkness. A cardiovascular system with multiple backup pathways. Professor Quinn raised a hand. "Why such redundancy?" "It seems metabolically expensive, because on Earth, losing function of one organ couldn't mean death." Our ancestors who had backup systems survived when others didn't. Over millions of years, redundancy became standard. Dr. Hyun switched to a new image, showing human immune response. Our immune system is particularly aggressive. When threatened, it attacks with overwhelming force. Fever, inflammation, antibody production. We make ourselves sick to kill what's making us sick. That's counterintuitive, a medical student observed. That's human, Dr. Hyun replied. We don't just defend. We counterattack. Our bodies wage war. On threats. She pulled up scan images from Jiho's treatment. When Jiho was poisoned, his body immediately began fighting back. Liver started processing toxin despite being damaged. Bone marrow increased blood cell production 300%. Neural pathways rerouted around damaged tissue. His body raised its temperature to speed healing. Every system that could help did help, even at cost to itself. Ambassador Daeun stood to address the crowd. Some of you are concerned that humans might be dangerous. I want to address that directly. Yes, we're resilient. Yes, we can survive things that would kill most species. But resilience doesn't equal aggression. Humans are also highly social, empathetic, and creative. We form bonds across species barriers. We create art, music, literature. We solve problems through cooperation. Our strength is tempered by our compassion. A council member from the Galactic Medical Ethics Board stood. His name was Threx, and he was known for careful, thoughtful positions. I appreciate your words, Ambassador. However, understanding breeds trust. May I ask Jiho directly about his experience? Jiho stood, still feeling somewhat weak but managing. Sure. What do you want to know? How did you feel during the poisoning and recovery? Jiho thought carefully. During the poisoning, I felt terrible. Everything hurt. I couldn't breathe right. I was scared. During recovery, I felt sick. Really sick. Like the worst flu I've ever had. Combined with food poisoning. But I never felt like I was dying. Once I woke up, I just felt bad. I knew I'd get better. I just needed time. You have experienced similar illnesses before? Nothing that severe, but yeah. Everyone gets sick sometimes. You rest, you heal, you move on. Threx nodded slowly. And you feel no resentment toward Vorak for poisoning you? I mean, I'm angry he did it. It was stupid and dangerous. But I'm alive. He made a really bad choice, based on wrong assumptions. I think he should face consequences. But I also think he deserves a chance to learn from this. Well, the answer seemed to surprise many in the audience. A being who had been nearly murdered was advocating for measured justice rather than revenge. It was, several species noted, a very human response. Dr. Hyun continued her presentation with examples of human survival. She discussed people who had survived falls from extreme heights, exposure to extreme cold, diseases that should have been fatal. She showed how human medicine had developed around understanding the body's natural healing capabilities. We don't just have resilient bodies, she explained. We have resilient minds. Humans experience trauma and find ways to process it, grow from it. We adapt psychologically as well as physically. This mental flexibility is as important as our physical durability. A student asked, are all humans this resilient? Or is Jiho special? Jiho is a normal, healthy human. Doctor, Hyun replied. His response to the poison was typical of what any human might experience. Some might have recovered faster, some slower, but the basic pattern would be the same. The implications settled over the room like snow. Every human had this capability. They weren't rare exceptions. They were all, every one of them, incredibly hard to kill by galactic standards. After the presentation, there was a long discussion period. Faculty members asked technical questions. Students wanted to know about Earth. Medical professionals requested permission to study human physiology through non-invasive means. Dr. Keon and Ambassador Daeun carefully managed each request, protecting Jiho and the other humans, while allowing legitimate scientific inquiry. Vorak's trial took place 2 days later. He stood before a panel of judges representing different species, charged with attempted murder and misuse of dangerous materials. Jiho attended as a witness. "I didn't know," Vorak said, his voice small. "I thought humans were weak. I thought they complained about every little thing. I wanted to prove they couldn't handle real academic work. I didn't understand that their complaints were about comfort, not capability. I didn't know they could survive almost anything." The judges deliberated carefully. Vorak's intent had been to harm, but not to kill. His ignorance of human biology was genuine. The fact that Jiho survived affected the severity of the crime. Eventually, they sentenced him to expulsion from the academy, community service, and mandatory education about other species biology. After the trial, Jiho approached Vorak in the corridor outside. The reptilian student looked shocked to see him. "I wanted to say something," Jiho began. Vorak flinched, expecting anger. Instead, Jiho extended his hand in the human gesture of peace. "You made a really stupid choice. You hurt me badly. But I'm okay now. And I think you understand why what you did was wrong. So, I forgive you. Just do better." Vorak stared at the offered hand, then slowly reached out and grasped it. "I don't understand humans." "That's okay," Jiho replied with a slight smile. "Most species don't. But maybe that's something we can all work on together." That evening, as Jiho sat with his friends in the dormitory common area, Talus brought up something that had been on everyone's mind. The Galactic Medical Institute wants to include human resilience data in survival training protocols. They think studying how humans survive might help save lives from other species. Jiho considered this. "If it helps people, I'm okay with that." "You're taking all of this very calmly," Nara observed. "What else can I do?" Jiho shrugged. "I survived something I shouldn't have. That's interesting to people. If studying why that happened helps others, that's good. If it helps humans integrate better into galactic society, that's good too." "You're handling this with remarkable grace," Subin said. "I'm just tired and want to finish my coursework," Jiho admitted. "Is that graceful or just practical?" They laughed, the sound mixing with the ambient noise of dozens of different species going about their evening routines. The galaxy was full of wonders and differences, but friendship apparently transcended all of them. 3 months passed, and Galactic Academy Station Theta 7 settled into a new rhythm. The incident with Jiho had changed things in ways both obvious and subtle. The human was no longer a curiosity but a recognized presence, someone who had proven that humanity belonged among the stars. Jiho walked through the corridors on his way to the library, carrying his datapad loaded with research materials. Students from various species nodded greetings as he passed. A few stopped to chat. The stares and whispers had faded, replaced by something closer to respect. He was just Jiho now, not the human who survived the impossible. Well, mostly just Jiho. Sometimes people still asked to hear the story. He found Talus already at their usual study table, surrounded by holographic notes for their joint research project. His insectoid friend's mandibles clicked in greeting. "You're late," Talus observed without malice. "Professor Hyun wanted to discuss our paper one more time. She's very thorough." Dr. Hyun had stayed at the academy as a visiting researcher, helping bridge the gap between human medicine and galactic healthcare. Her presence had made life easier for the 3 humans on station, and her lectures had become highly popular across multiple departments. "Has she approved it for publication?" Talus asked. "Almost. She wants us to expand the section on comparative metabolism. Says it's the strongest part of our analysis." Their paper, titled Comparative Analysis of Toxin Resistance Across Carbon-Based Life Forms, had grown from a class project into serious academic work. Jiho and Talus had spent weeks analyzing how different species processed dangerous substances, using Jiho's survival as a case study. The research was attracting attention from xenobiologists across several systems. Nara arrived with Minho, both carrying cups from the station's cafe. The cafe had started serving Earth coffee after demand from other species who had tried it and found the stimulant effects interesting. Some species couldn't process caffeine at all, but others had made it part of their daily routine. 3 more faculty members asked me about human resilience today, Minho said, sitting down. They want to revise medical training to include human emergency protocols. That's good, right? Jiho asked. It's great, but it's strange being the reference point for an entire species' medical treatment. I'm just a student. You're the student who helped save my life, Jiho pointed out. That makes you qualified. Subin joined them a few minutes later, bringing news from the linguistics department. The universal translators are being updated with better human idiom recognition. Apparently, your tendency to use metaphors and sarcasm has been confusing for translation algorithms. Is that my fault? Jiho asked, with a smile. Completely, Subin replied cheerfully. But it's making the translators better overall, so nobody's complaining. As they studied together, Jiho reflected on how much had changed. When he had first arrived at the academy 6 months ago, he had felt isolated. One of 3 humans, in a sea of alien species, trying to prove he belonged. Now his friend group included species from 5 different worlds. They studied together, ate together when their biologies permitted, and supported each other through academic challenges. Professor Quinn entered the library and approached their table. The amphibian professor's skin was a calm blue, indicating good mood. Jiho, I wanted to inform you that your midterm exam on xenobiology has been selected as an example paper for future classes. Your analysis of adaptive evolution was excellent. Thank you, Professor. I also wanted to apologize again for what happened in my laboratory. The safety protocols have been completely revised. It wasn't your fault, Jiho said sincerely. And the new protocols will help keep everyone safer. Something good came from something bad. After Professor Quinn left, Talus turned to Jiho. You really don't hold grudges, do you? What's the point? Staying angry doesn't help anyone. Moving forward and making things better does. That's very human, Talus observed. Something he said often now. It had become his way of noting when human psychology differed from his own species' approach. Later that evening, Jiho found himself in an unexpected situation. He had been asked to give a campus tour to a new student, a nervous young being from a species called the Telvar. They were small, furry creatures with large eyes and cautious personalities. The new student, whose name translated roughly as Bright Whisker, seemed terrified of everything. Is it true you survived Thessian Nightshade? Bright Whisker asked in a quiet voice. Yeah, that happened, Jiho confirmed. But it's not something you need to worry about. The academy is safe now. They've improved all the safety protocols. My family was worried about sending me here. They said space stations are dangerous. Jiho knelt down to be at eye level with the smaller being. Every place has some risk. But the academy is good about taking care of its students. You'll make friends, learn amazing things, and be okay. I promise. You're very kind for someone so dangerous. Jiho laughed. Humans aren't dangerous. We're just durable. There's a difference. Come on. I'll show you the best study spots and where to get good food. As they walked through the station, Jiho pointed out important locations and introduced Bright Whisker to other students. By the end of the tour, the small alien was visibly more relaxed. Making someone feel welcome, Jiho realized, was its own kind of strength. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. Vorak returned to the station, not as a student, but as part of his community service. He had been assigned to work with the safety committee, helping review and improve protocols to prevent future incidents. It was awkward seeing him again. But Jiho had meant what he said about forgiveness. They found themselves working together on a safety presentation for new students. Vorak was stiff and formal at first, clearly uncomfortable. "You don't have to be nervous around me," Jiho said during a break. "I poisoned you." "Yeah. And I survived. And you're facing consequences. And we're both learning from it. That's how things get better." Vorak was quiet for a moment. "My people don't forgive easily. We hold on to wrongs for generations. I don't understand how you can be so casual about what I did. Holding on to anger hurts me more than it hurts you," Jiho explained. "I'd rather use that energy for something positive. Besides, you made a mistake based on ignorance. Now you know better. That's growth." Over the following weeks, Vorak and Jiho developed an unlikely friendship. They would never be close, but they found common ground in their academic interests and shared goal of making the academy safer. Other students watched this interaction with fascination. The human who had been poisoned and the alien who had poisoned him, working together peacefully. It was a powerful example of reconciliation. The semester continued with its usual rhythm of classes, exams, and research. Jiho's paper with Talus was published in the Journal of Xenobiological Studies and received positive reviews. Dr. Hyun's lectures on human resilience became required material for medical students. Minho was accepted into an advanced program studying interspecies medicine. Nara won an award for her chemistry research. Subin published a paper on linguistic adaptation in multilingual environments. Humans were integrating into galactic society, not by being the strongest or smartest, but by being adaptable, resilient, and willing to build connections across vast differences. One afternoon, Jiho received a message on his data pad. It was from the Graduate Admissions Committee. He had applied to several programs, hoping to continue his studies after finishing his undergraduate degree. His hands shook slightly as he opened the message. Acceptance letter. Full scholarship. Graduate program in interspecies medical research at the Galactic Institute. He read the letter 3 times to make sure it was real. Then, he ran to find his friends. They celebrated that evening in the common area. An odd mixture of species who had somehow become family. Talus brought food from his homeworld that Jiho couldn't eat, but appreciated the gesture. Nara made Earth-style cookies that most aliens found confusing but tried anyway. Minho gave a toast about friendship. Transcending biology, Subin taught everyone a Korean drinking song, which the translators butchered hilariously. "I can't believe you got into the institute," Nara said, genuinely happy despite knowing it meant Jiho would be leaving the academy eventually. "That's one of the most competitive programs in the galaxy. They said in the letter that my unique perspective on resilience and recovery made me an ideal candidate," Jiho explained. "Apparently surviving the unsurvivable looks good on applications. Only you would make a joke about nearly dying," Talus said. But his mandibles clicked with amusement. As the evening wound down and friends departed to their various dormitories, Jiho stood at one of the station's observation windows, looking out at the stars. 6 months ago, he had arrived at this academy nervous and uncertain. He had faced prejudice, misunderstanding, and literal poisoning. But he had also found friendship, purpose, and acceptance. Humanity was still new to the galactic community. There would be more challenges, more misunderstandings, more moments where being human meant being different. But differences, Jiho had learned, weren't weaknesses. They were opportunities for growth, understanding, and connection. His datapad chimed with a message from Bright Whisker, the nervous student he had given a tour to weeks ago. The message was simple. "Thank you for being kind. I'm doing well. Made some friends today." Jiho smiled and sent back a reply. "That's great. Keep it up. You belong here." The station's lights dimmed slightly as night cycle began. Jiho finished his coffee, the earth beverage that had become his trademark among the student body. and headed back to his dormitory. Tomorrow, there would be more classes, more research, more opportunities to prove that humans belonged among the stars. He touched the medical monitor band still on his wrist, the one Dr. Zelnis had insisted he wear for 3 months. It had been cleared for removal weeks ago, but Jiho kept it as a reminder, not of nearly dying, but of the connections he had made through surviving. The doctors, nurses, friends, and even strangers who had cared about whether he lived or died. Humans were resilient. That was true. But they were also social, empathetic, and determined. Those traits together made them something special in the galaxy. Not superior, not inferior, just uniquely human. And that, Jiho thought as he entered his dormitory and prepared for sleep, was more than enough. The stars continued their ancient dance outside the station windows. Somewhere among them was Earth, the death world that had created a species tough enough to survive almost anything, yet gentle enough to forgive, to teach, to make friends with beings who breathed different air and saw different colors. Jiho closed his eyes and slept peacefully, dreaming of the future he was building among the stars, one friendship and one coffee at a time.